Imagine waking up one day and nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels right either. You check your phone. No missed calls, no urgent messages, just the soft glow of a world that seems to be moving without you. Your coffee tastes the same. The weather outside is agreeable. You have no apparent reason to feel sad, and yet you feel hollow. Not broken, not in pain, just empty. There's a silence inside you that no music can fill, a hunger that food doesn't touch. You laugh at the jokes, you nod during conversations. But when the world gets quiet again, when you're alone in your room or walking through a crowded street, the emptiness returns like a phantom limb you can't stop feeling. Why? Why do so many people, living in cities that never sleep, with endless entertainment, infinite content, fast delivery, and synthetic happiness, still feel this lingering void? It doesn't matter if you're young or old. It doesn't care about your income, your friends, your weekend plans. The emptiness is an equal opportunity shadow. Maybe you've tried to outrun it. Work harder, travel further, fall in love, drink more, post more, buy more. But somehow, despite all the noise, the silence inside you grows louder. So you tell yourself, it's just a phase, or I'm just tired. And maybe you are. But what if that emptiness isn't a bug in your life's code? What if it's the feature? What if we've built entire civilizations, our jobs, our values, our goals on top of something deeply flawed? And this hollowness is the whisper of a truth we're not supposed to hear. What if emptiness isn't the absence of something, but the presence of everything that doesn't matter? You see, modern life is a labyrinth. A million flashing arrows point in a million directions, each promising fulfillment. But what if the entire map is wrong? What if we are chasing shadows, mistaking them for meaning? What if your sense of emptiness is the one honest part of you left, begging you to stop playing a game you were never meant to win? You scroll through highlight reels of strangers. You celebrate virtual milestones. You say yes when you mean no. You put on masks you didn't choose. Play roles you didn't write, until the mirror shows someone you barely recognize, and still the world applauds you, because you're functioning. But functioning isn't the same as feeling alive, so you ask yourself, why do I feel so disconnected when I'm more connected than ever? Why do I feel so alone when I have thousands of digital friends? Why do I feel so numb when I'm supposed to be living my best life? Here's the paradox. We are more stimulated than any generation before us, and yet more emotionally starved. We are told we are free, but somehow imprisoned by our own choices. We have every answer at our fingertips, but we've forgotten the questions. What if that empty feeling inside you is sacred? Not a failure, not a disorder, but a doorway, a signal. Not from your brokenness, but from your buried self. A self that remembers what it's like to dream without agenda, to feel without filters, to exist without explanation. A self that's been silenced by routines, expectations, and algorithms, but still waits for you in the quiet moments, when the noise fades. The question is not, how do I stop feeling empty? The real question is, what part of me is missing, and who convinced me it didn't matter? Before we go further, sit with that. Don't rush to fix it. Don't numb it. Don't turn away. Just listen. Because what comes next isn't just an explanation. It's a confrontation, a slow unraveling of everything you thought you knew about purpose, identity, and the invisible architecture of your inner world. We are about to explore the real reason you feel empty. And to do that, we must peel back the layers that keep you comfortable but unfulfilled. Are you ready to go there? Let's begin with a simple truth most people never question. You were not born empty. You were born curious, chaotic, full of wonder. You screamed when you needed something. You laughed without shame. You explored without purpose. You were purely, unapologetically. So the real question isn't why you feel empty now. The question is, When did you start being trained to abandon yourself? The world didn't ask who you were. It asked what you could do, what grades you could get, what job you could earn, what role you could play in the machinery of society. Little by little, your identity became performance. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith. When we pretend to be someone we're not in order to fit into roles society has handed us, not because we want to deceive others, but because we are terrified of the raw freedom of being ourselves. You see, freedom is scary. It means responsibility. It means no excuses. It means confronting the terrifying possibility that meaning isn't given, it must be created. So instead, we adopt scripts. We become the ambitious one, the funny one, the attractive one, the reliable one. We become brand identities instead of human beings. And with each identity we take on, a part of our true self is buried beneath layers of expectation. Enter the teachings of Carl Jung, who warned us of the persona, the mask we wear to function in society, and the danger of over-identifying with it. He believed the soul begins to suffer when we lose contact with the parts of ourselves that do not fit neatly into our socially accepted role. You feel empty, not because you are broken, but because the mask has become your skin, and your soul, unrecognized, unexpressed, is starving. But it gets worse, because society rewards the mask. You get likes, promotions, applause, not for your authenticity, but for how well you play your part, for how palatable, efficient, and productive you are. You're told to be yourself, but only if that self fits the current brand aesthetic. And if it doesn't, hide it, filter it, market it. This leads to a split inside you, a fracture. Psychologists call this self-alienation. The more you ignore your inner truth to meet external validation, the more disconnected you become from your own emotional landscape. Imagine your inner world as a house. Every time you betray your needs, you lock a door. Every time you suppress your truth, you close a window. Eventually, you find yourself in a beautiful prison you decorated yourself, and you wonder why it feels empty inside. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants." We like to think we choose our desires, but how many of your goals were truly yours? Was it you who wanted success, or the approval that came with it? Was it you who wanted that relationship, or the identity that came with being chosen? Was it you who desired the lifestyle, or just feared being seen as less than? This is the hidden problem. Your life may be structured entirely around the desires of a self you no longer recognize. So when you reach the goal, it feels hollow, because it never came from your soul. And yet, the world keeps telling you the opposite. Just work harder. Just manifest more. Just stay positive. But what if positivity, when misapplied, becomes a sedative? What if hustle culture is just spiritual anesthesia? Aldous Huxley in Brave New World described a society that didn't control its people through fear but through pleasure. They were too entertained to question, too medicated to rebel, too distracted to feel. Sound familiar? In the age of endless scrolling, instant dopamine, and algorithmic bliss, who has time for reflection? You're constantly chasing the next hit, be it likes, validation, or success, never noticing that your soul has stopped knocking. It's waiting, silently, patiently, for you to look inwards. Even modern psychology supports this. The concept of hedonic adaptation explains why no matter how much pleasure you accumulate, it never lasts. You return to your emotional baseline. The shopping spree, the new relationship, the vacation, it all fades. Because the emptiness isn't cured by adding more, it's cured by subtracting the lies. But how do you subtract something you didn't even realize was added? How do you reclaim a self you've forgotten how to hear? Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and existential psychiatrist, argued that humans aren't primarily motivated by pleasure or power, but by meaning. And meaning isn't something you find on a shelf. It's something you create by engaging with suffering, truth, and authenticity. That means your emptiness isn't a flaw. It's a compass. It's telling you that your life, as it currently exists, is not aligned with your inner truth, that your choices have been shaped by fear, by programming, by expectations, rather than by genuine resonance. And this is where the real work begins. Because you cannot fill the void by adding more. You must descend into it, explore it, and ask the question most people are too afraid to ask. If I stripped away every label, every expectation, every borrowed desire, who would I be? The answer isn't simple. It won't come in a single revelation, but in the quiet recognition that the problem was never that you were empty. It's that you were too full of everything that wasn't you. You walk into a room full of people and smile. They smile back. You laugh at their jokes, nod at their stories, say all the right things. But inside, you feel like a ghost. You're not alone in this, ironically. That's the problem. We live in a society of ghosts. People who have mastered the performance of presence, but not its reality. We're connected, but rarely intimate. Surrounded, but seldom seen. And this silent epidemic is not just emotional, it's neurological, psychological, cultural. The emptiness you feel is not just a personal wound, it is a societal infection. Let's explore how deep this rabbit hole goes. In the modern world, we are overstimulated and undersatiated. Our brains are constantly bombarded by information but not meaning. Noise but not nourishment. The prefrontal cortex, your logic center, is running marathons, while your limbic system, your emotion center, is starving. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio found that when patients suffered damage to emotion processing areas of the brain, they lost the ability to make even simple decisions. Because emotion isn't a distraction from rational thought, it's the foundation of it. Yet modern life trains us to suppress emotion. Be professional. Don't cry. Don't take it personally. You begin to interpret your own feelings as inconvenient, dangerous, weak. Over time, your emotional vocabulary shrinks. Joy becomes fine. Sadness becomes tired. Rage becomes stressed. You no longer feel the full spectrum of human existence, you skim it. And so you become desensitized, disconnected. This is emotional numbness, not because you don't feel, but because you're not allowed to. And when you can't feel deeply, you can't live deeply. You're told you have freedom, 1,000 apps, 100 careers, infinite scrolling. But freedom without direction becomes a curse. You become paralyzed by options, overwhelmed by decisions, and yet most of those choices are illusions. Think about it. What determines your taste, your values, your goals? You think you chose them, but you were taught them. Conditioned through marketing, social pressure, family scripts, and silent rewards. Even your rebellion was curated, targeted by algorithms that monetize your outrage. Psychologists call this cultural scripting. It means the life you're living might not be your own. It might be a reenactment of someone else's blueprint, downloaded without consent. So when you feel empty, after checking off all the boxes, school, job, marriage, home, it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because your soul wasn't in any of those boxes. Let's go deeper. When you live disconnected from your true self, you unconsciously project that fracture into every part of your life. Relationships become performances. You choose partners based on who validates your persona, not your soul. You fall in love with versions of yourself reflected in others, not with the truth of who they are. Work becomes identity. Instead of being a channel for expression, it becomes a substitute for self-worth. The title, the salary, the grind define you until burnout arrives like a collapse of a false god. Creativity becomes content. Your inner voice is diluted into digestible pixels, optimized for virality instead of authenticity. Stillness becomes terror. You avoid silence because silence introduces you to the parts of yourself you've neglected, and you're afraid of what they might say. This disconnection bleeds into your habits, your rituals, your thoughts, and over time it shapes your reality. You begin to live defensively, always performing, always protecting, always pretending. And the worst part? No one notices, because they're doing it too. You're all smiling through it, quietly wondering why you feel so dead inside. Now, let's talk systems. Your emptiness isn't just tolerated by society, it's monetized. A person who feels whole doesn't need to constantly buy, scroll, or prove, but a person who feels empty, they're the perfect consumer. You feel lonely, so they sell you connection in the form of apps. You feel insecure, so they sell you identity through fashion and filters. You feel purposeless, so they sell you hustle, goals, and status. This is not a conspiracy. It's capitalism doing exactly what it's designed to do, feed on the void. Your pain is profitable, so the world keeps you running faster, harder, busier. Because the more still you become, the closer you get to realizing the truth, that the thing you're chasing doesn't exist out there. It never did. And that's dangerous. Because if everyone stopped chasing and started feeling, if people began asking real questions instead of buying answers, the whole machine would slow down. And so we are trained subtly, relentlessly not to feel too much, not to think too deeply, not to question too bravely, because the system doesn't need you to be fulfilled. It just needs you to keep scrolling. Let's turn inward again. When you live this way for too long, divorced from meaning, starved of depth, you begin to collapse from the inside. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, elegantly. Your laughter loses its music. Your days blur into each other. You stop asking why, and start asking what next. You become a beautiful imitation of life, and deep inside, your soul weeps for something real. But no one hears it, because even your sadness is curated. Even your suffering is filtered. You post your breakdown with aesthetic lighting and soft music, hoping someone will see past the facade and just say, "I see you." Not the mask. You. But few do, because they're still wearing theirs. And so the emptiness continues, not because you're too weak, not because you're broken, but because you've been systematically separated from yourself, emotionally, culturally, neurologically. The question now is not, how bad is it? The question is there a way out? Is it possible to reclaim your aliveness? To remember the parts of yourself that were never meant to be silenced? To break the spell? The next section will show you how. You don't need more tips. You don't need more books, more rules, more rituals. You need a rebellion, not the loud, destructive kind, but the quiet, soul-shaking, paradigm-shattering kind. A rebellion against everything that taught you to distrust yourself, against the culture of polished masks and pixel-perfect suffering, against the myth that your worth is something you earn instead of something you are. You don't escape emptiness by filling it. You escape it by breaking the shell that created it. The first act of rebellion is radical presence. Stop performing your life. Sit in a room without distractions. No music, no scrolling, no stimulation. Feel the silence. It will terrify you at first because it's there, in the silence, that your buried self begins to stir. You might hear voices you don't like. Regrets, grief, anger, shame, good. That means you're waking up. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." You've been living under the spell of unconscious programming. The only way out is to face it fully. This means feeling what you've avoided. It means crying without knowing why. It means letting the mask crack. And it means doing nothing until your true voice returns. You've been told that healing is a journey, that life is a mountain you climb, that there's always a next level, a next goal, a next achievement. But what if progress is another illusion? What if the deepest healing happens when you stop trying to become? And remember that you already are? Viktor Frankl wrote, "Man is not destroyed by suffering. He is destroyed by suffering without meaning." Your goal isn't to eliminate pain. It's to learn how to sit with it, how to let it speak, how to translate it into truth, how to use it as the compass back home. That's where meaning begins, not in control, but in surrender. So don't ask, how do I fix this? Ask, what is my emptiness trying to reveal? Here's a counterintuitive truth. To remember who you are, you must become deeply unmarketable. Your real self cannot be optimized. It doesn't fit neatly into an aesthetic. It isn't palatable, predictable, or profitable. Your true self is inconvenient. It says no when everyone expects yes. It speaks truth even when your voice shakes. It finds joy in things that don't trend. To rebel is to choose this version of yourself even if no one claps. Turn off the noise. Step outside the feed. Read dead poets. Walk barefoot. Watch clouds. Be boring. Be unseen. And slowly, the real you will come back. It always does. It was just waiting for the algorithm to shut up. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. This means you must create sanctuary internally and externally. Not in some grand aesthetic way, but in small sacred acts of truth. Speak honestly even when it makes others uncomfortable. Create something ugly but real. Say no without explanation. Sit in discomfort, without escaping. Meaning doesn't arrive with trumpets. It appears quietly, when you show up with full presence and no agenda. Arthur Brooks, in his research on happiness, writes that fulfillment isn't about maximizing pleasure. It's about aligning your actions with your deeper values. So ask yourself, when do I feel most alive? Not most productive, not most admired, most alive. Your job isn't to have all the answers. It's to build a life that lets those moments multiply. There is no medal for inner work, no applause for choosing to feel instead of flee, no viral clip for crying in your room because you finally told the truth. But this is the sacred rebellion. It's the invisible revolution that changes everything. When you begin to choose truth over performance, depth over noise, silence over stimulation, you alter the field around you. You become a reminder to your friends, to your partner, to your children, to your world. You become a lighthouse, not by fixing others, but by refusing to abandon yourself. This is how healing spreads, not by force, but by frequency. You don't have to change the world. You just have to stop lying to yourself. And that is the beginning of a new world. So what now? Now you grieve. You grieve for the years you spent sleepwalking, for the parts of yourself you buried to be accepted, for the dreams you forgot, the truths you silenced, the love you withheld. Let the grief be loud. It is the soil from which new life grows. And when the tears dry, you begin again. Not as a product, not as a persona, but as a soul, unfiltered, unfinished, unapologetically alive. What if the emptiness wasn't meant to be fixed? What if the void inside you is sacred? Not a pit to escape, but a mirror. A mirror that reflects the real you, not the one who performs, not the one who achieves, not the one who survives, but the one who is. This is the ultimate truth. You are not empty. You are spacious. And those are not the same. Emptiness is a symptom of living someone else's life. Spaciousness is what remains when you finally return to your own. You were not born to be full of distractions, validations, and noise. You were born with space to feel, to create, to wonder, to be. You feel lost, not because you lack direction, but because your compass was hijacked. You feel numb, not because you lack emotion, but because your emotions were never given the freedom to breathe. You feel disconnected, not because you lack people, but because you were never taught how to connect with yourself. This final realization isn't something you figure out. It's something you remember, like a melody from childhood, a scent that brings you to tears, a dream you forgot you had. Remember this. Before the roles, before the disappointments, before the applause and the algorithm, you were already enough. You didn't need to earn love. You didn't need to chase meaning. You didn't need to prove your worth. You just existed. And that was holy. Imagine music without silence. A song without pauses is just noise. You are not the constant sound. You are the space between the notes, the pauses, the breath, the stillness that gives shape to everything. This is what the mystics meant when they spoke of the divine as nothingness, not an absence, but a presence so complete, so free, so expansive, it feels like nothing, because it lacks the sharp edges of ego. In Zen Buddhism, this is called sunyata, the fertile void, the emptiness that is actually wholeness, the nothing that contains everything. You feel empty not because you are lacking, but because you are remembering what it feels like to finally not be full of illusions. We were sold a lie. That life should always feel good, that happiness is a default setting, that peace is a prize you win after checking all the boxes. But real life is not linear, it is cyclical. Breath in, breath out, gain, loss, bloom, wither, bloom again. You are not broken because you feel the winter inside you. You are human. And the most alive people are not the ones who are always smiling. They are the ones who have made peace with everything inside them, the joy and the sorrow, the certainty and the confusion. They are not seeking answers. They are learning to love the questions. In the end, the grandest awakening is not becoming someone else. It's finally being who you've always been, underneath all the layers. Not enlightenment as fireworks, but as deep silence. Not transcendence as escape, but as intimacy with your own breath. You don't need to move to the mountains. You don't need to retreat into some monastery. Your healing is not in the extraordinary. It's in learning how to sit in your kitchen, hold a cup of tea, feel the warmth in your hands, and realize that this moment is enough, that you are enough. Now, without changing anything, let the lies fall. Let the masks drop. Let the striving dissolve. There is no finish line. There is only this breath and the next, and the sacred decision to be here. Fully. That's it. That's the real rebellion, not chasing more, not becoming more, but finally seeing that you've always had everything you were searching for, buried beneath layers of noise and narrative. The spiritual teacher Ram Dass once said, "We're all just walking each other home. So walk home, to your stillness, to your heart, to your truth. Not the curated one, not the intellectual one. The quiet truth that says, I am here. I don't know where I'm going, but I trust this moment." And in that surrender, in that silence, the void turns to light. So now, here you are. At the end of a journey that began not in search of answers, but in the courage to sit with the question, why do I feel empty? And maybe now you see you don't. You feel ready. Ready to let go of the version of you that was never yours. Ready to stop chasing and start choosing. Ready to stop filling the silence and start listening to it. The world will try to pull you back, to scroll again, to strive again, to shrink again. But you'll know. Because now you've seen it, the truth, that the deepest healing doesn't happen through addition. It happens through return, a return to soul, to stillness, to the space that holds everything and demands nothing. And now, it's your turn. Put down the phone, close your eyes, and just breathe. That's all. No goals, no fixing, no figuring it out. Just breathe. And in that breath, feel the sacred truth echo through your entire being. You were never empty. You were just waiting to remember.